What a interesting time in history to have a
It
song
was.
that is propelled by the fact that we're going to war, defeated by the fact that we went to war, like for the same reason.
And was written in response to a different war. That was the moment that we were all wrestling with, and what Natalie said, what she said, was all about Iraq.
Just so you know, we're ashamed the President of the United States is from Texas.
I wish somebody would have cared about what their song said. I didn't think that they did my kind of songs on the radio, and then when Angry All the Time, and then they didn't release it as a single. And the story was that radio asked for the song after the first cut, that they were hearing back from people, and people were starting to play it already. So it kind of forced them to release that.
That's
as a
why
single.
that's what I think is a lost art, is that it's patience.
Right.
And it's like a real hit comes from that.
Well, I'd love to think so.
Why don't you play this?
Right.
What, that, and then one person says it, and then 10 people, and then you get a true consensus, and then you go, "Hey, man, I think y'all ought to release this."
Yeah, you'd love that to be the case.
Well, that's what Angry All the Time was.
Yeah, and Travelin' Soldier was too.
I know it's an old story, but that still gets me every time you say it. Where it is the fastest to go to number one and the fastest to fall off the chart.
Yeah.
What a interesting time in history to have a
It
song
was.
that is propelled by
Yeah.
the fact that we're going to war.
Yeah.
And is defeated by the fact that we went to war, like for the same reason.
And was written in response to a different war.
Yeah.
By
what was it, Korean or
no? The
Vietnam?
first Kuwait.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So I mean, when Bush Senior or
right, that was
George
that was
when
80,
he died a couple of years ago.
That was 89.
It was all along. I mean, I was not. They would never know about me, but that stuff was all intertwined with their story of their presidencies. And so I was working in a kitchen.
Wow.
I was a fry cook, and the other fry cook got called up for the Kuwait War. And so in making sense of that long buildup for that first Gulf War, to try and make sense of what was going on, I was just started writing songs. And so I wrote that song to think about, just to make sense of, I was worried about all these folks going off and getting killed. And it was probably 10 years before the Chicks released it.
It's a hard song to write, man.
Well, and just a big part of all our whole, all the stuff that we're dealing with and our polarization and stuff. During the pandemic, this is really jumping around, but I'd seen Daryl Worley. His song, Have You Forgotten?
Oh, yeah.
Pretty much removed Travelin' Soldier, was right after that. And they're two very, very different songs.
Very.
And I look at one of them as a political song, and the other one is not a political song. I look at my song just being about compassion, pretty much.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is what I think. And so that song, it said, have you forgotten the ones behind bin Laden? And so it's a very different song.
Yeah.
And I the other guy who wrote it, I forget what his name was, super nice guy. During the pandemic, we did a show together somewhere, a little guitar pull. And he talked about the song, but he only said Afghanistan, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah.
Because the whole song is about bin Laden, and that was the moment that we were all wrestling with, and what Natalie said, what she said, was all about, Iraq. The only thing that I regretted about the whole deal, I don't know, we haven't really talked in depth with Natalie or Emily or Marty about that. We just kind of mostly just shook our heads about it, and I never really. My kids have more problem with it than I do, but
what do your kids think?
Well, they know that there was a movie in production. They know that it probably would have won some awards, and they know that it was the pop remix was about to be released at that moment, and the songs before went #1 on the pop chart, and it was poised to be all these other things. And I really never. It went #1. It sold 6 or 7 million records.
That was heady stuff, man.
Yes, it was. And all I was saying was about it, that the only thing that bummed me out was that I don't know. I just never, my little bit of it, there was, and it was, and everybody, people were supposedly, putting pressure on the radio stations and all that. And so all through that, I was very, very proud of my little part in what that song said. And to me, that's a big deal. It's like, even at least mention it. What we're talking about here is songs. So what is it that their song said?
Right.
And
it was actually congruent with their emotion.
Maybe so, but I mean, at least
respect. It had to do with.
I think it wasn't helpful to the people who had backs to grind there, so they didn't want to talk about what the song was.
Yeah,
and so, but that's really my only bummer, because really it was a big deal. It went #1. It was, I'd Rather Be Me. Radney Foster had the single afterwards. We always laughed about that. So,
what was Radney's?
Oh, I think it was. What's that song called? Hey, little man. Godspeed. Yeah. So whenever anybody's feeling sorry for me, I go, well, Radney Foster was the dork after, I mean,
you got to put out this badass song that nobody gave a shit about.
Yeah, that you only knew no one on country radio was going to play. And